Monzo and Revolut are probably like the two darling of the UK when it comes to fintech, right? Last time I checked, a month ago or something, I think Monzo TikTok account had like 55,000 followers, and we had 30 already. Like, they should have millions of followers.
On today's show, we are delighted to be joined by Yoann Pavy. Yoann is the CMO at Nude, a fintech app revolutionizing the way that first-time buyers save up for that all-important purchase. Yoann has been described as the marketer of unicorns, having previously worked at Deliveroo and Depop. Yoann, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
I would love to start out with what's probably captured a lot of people's attention with the intro, and that is you've worked at some pretty big companies. How did you get started working there?
Yeah, so I guess I had a pretty good transitional career from engineering into digital marketing about 8 years ago. I started off in an agency back from, square one. Like I said, changing career. I was a project manager in automotive before changing for like 3 years, working at Ford. And that wasn't really for me. I was looking for something else, and I was really into tech, and everything that was happening in tech at the time with MySpace and Facebook, etc. I went into an agency because that was, it's still a good way to get your beak wet on something new, and them giving me a chance to learn and then get cracking. So I did about a year and a half agency side, working for some pretty big brands and gaming companies across industry like gaming, Shutterstock, Adobe, some like big budget on what Facebook ads was at the time, like literally bulk uploading Excel sheets into Facebook, a very old school way. Like Facebook ads were not what they are now, where it's, everything is being like very commoditized, a couple of buttons, and you can't do too much. Back in the days, it was really, really manual. And I guess it was like that wave back in that time of growth at all costs, economy booming, a lot of VC-backed companies. And there was kind of this wave of now new unicorns in the UK. And one of them I got the chance to pitch at my agency was Deliveroo, which was on the rise, but still quite niche. It was only open in a few neighborhoods in London, just opened Paris. That was it, and a few cities in the UK. And they were looking for their first growth marketer for paid social and really scale really fast advertising on that front. So that's what I took as responsibility, like head of paid social at Deliveroo. Got to scale with the business. It was Series B, going into Series C, opening 12 countries in 6 months. I was a year and a half old in my digital marketing career. Like I was still a baby, very, very little idea of what I was doing besides Facebook ads. That's all I knew. I was like, okay. But I took on a bit more than that, the organic social side of things, organizing 12 markets, marketing managers, most of them not really knowing, besides on their own personal day-to-day life, how to use Facebook. And so there was a lot of learnings for me on that front, just being the central point from the central team in London, organizing that. The team grew across channels and the marketing team became quite big. So that was my first experience at a unicorn to be. I did about 2 years there. I had a stint in B2B in between after Deliveroo. 2 reasons. I wanted to learn about B2B. So it's slightly different, sales, marketing funnels and how that relationship works. I think it was really interesting, like lead generation, demand generation. That was really cool. But very quickly got contacted by a company that spoke to me very closely because I always been into clothing, like an OG eBay kind of guy, like looking for like thrifting things, like object design, clothes, everything. And that was Depop. And Depop, a little bit similarly to Deliveroo, Series B stage, grew organically for like a few years, I think 5 years at that point, a few million users, pretty much all organic, pretty much done nothing on digital. And I remember very vividly at the interview stage, the CEO telling me, look, we never believed in digital. We don't think it can work. with our business model. Obviously, marketplaces are very small margins. It's tight. It's a tight business. But if you're willing to take the challenge, this is what I think about it. Like, what do you think? And from like the first 5 minutes, I knew it was a no-brainer for me because first of all, I like the industry. I like marketplaces. Coming from Deliveroo, there was like another type of marketplace. I was pretty convinced I was going to do a good job because organically, if you can grow a marketplace to a few million users, there's a good chance that once you start putting fuel to the fire, it will grow with digital marketing. I had a good 2 years experience there. Again, same like growing the team. I had a wider remit across all digital marketing. It was effectively the first growth team in the company, and also being in charge of more content marketing and the brand side of things, how to develop that on digital, like content wise. I think that was really interesting for me, like really close to what I grew to like in marketing when, looking at more channels than just ads. Now I've got like a much wider view as to what it is. So yeah, those were the two big ones. Obviously, Depop more recently like got acquired by Etsy about a year after I left. That was my number 2 unicorn, exited unicorn, because obviously Deliveroo IPO'd the same year actually. So I got 2 exited unicorn the same year. That was nice. And yeah, that's kind of the story. And now working at Nude in fintech, which is probably the most successful industry to create unicorns in the UK. And most of them are fintechs. So unicorn to be or, unicorn. So I am quite keen to see how far we can push Nude. And, it's my first CMO role as well. So I'm quite excited to get the full reign as to what marketing, brand growth looks like.
Impressive. I think the idea of managing such huge spend with only 18 months experience in the Deliveroo role would scare the heck out of some people, but it probably says a lot about your background in engineering and being meticulous that probably equipped you for that. I know that in trading, they always look for people with engineering backgrounds. And I think when Facebook was probably in its form that it was in back then, it was a lot like trading on the platforms. And now we have a lot more automation. So you probably had the skills without knowing it at that time.
Yeah, so I think my background definitely, despite my creative side, I am very data driven and commercial driven. Like I love the thrill of like growth numbers analysis and just testing things, seeing where we can move the needle for a business, like any business. I think I get like a massive thrill out of that. And I think the other thing that is really clear to me is that I've done competitive basketball competition for a while in my youth, for 15 years. And I think I'm a massive competitor. I love a challenge and I love to win. So I think that drives me quite a lot in everything I do. And I don't shy away from trying things to win, to improve things and push things forward. So yeah, I think that will help me, improving and growing in my career. I think the transition to CMO now was eased by the fact that it's a bit easier to go into a smaller startups, to get that step up. I think it's always a good thing. Like it would have been a lot harder for me from head of then VP to CMO at a much bigger company, more established with a lot bigger team, more processes. I think the role is completely different at that point. Like you're a manager, you're a people's manager. Like you need to be asking people for solutions more, like coming up with problems and nurturing teams to come up with solutions. Whereas I'm still a lot more in the trenches, despite the fact that I'm CMO, the team is still small. I still get to do a lot of the doing. I'm really close to things and obviously delegate a few others, but I think that's what helped the transition.
It's almost like you get to build your playbook as a CMO rather than operating somebody else's. How have you found that transition? So you're starting off working quite heavily with performance marketing and moving through with growth into now a CMO role where different platforms pop up. So out of home, potentially TV, all of these things. How are you finding the transition away from some of your old biases? I think it would be fair to say. How are you balancing that in this new position?
That's a very good question. I think every stage, every role I got from the very first one, I've always added one or few channels to my repertoire. So by the time I got to the role I'm in, I think I've tried a bit of everything. So I've tried a bit of out of home, tried a bit of TV or VOD, programmatic. I tried content, more on the brand side, obviously paid. I work closely with product on growth and features, the product marketing side of things, like referral programs and things like. So I think that helped. I made sure that every role I got a little bit more out of what I know and experience a bit more. So what that did to me is I got out of my biases of thinking about paid social, for example, first, like Instagram ads, like let's do ads. Go away from that thinking. I still think that some of these channels are amazing. If you've got the firepower and you know what you're doing on the creative side, it's amazing. We're doing amazing stuff at Nude since I joined. I'm still blown away by the results you can get from TikTok ads. It's mad. But I'm a lot more in tune with, for example, the brand side of things, which is also very important as a CMO, thinking about organic, creating meaningful engagement with people, make sure you're relevant, make sure people care. Depop taught me a lot about like the community side of things as well, building sub-communities within your audience, having meaningful engagement with them. And it could be done in different shape or form, but it's something that I care a lot about right now. And I think some of the work we're doing at Nude right now, content wise, brand wise, is unbelievable for the size of our business. And I think we are putting great stuff out there on top of the more acquisition type of channel. So I've got this balance now where I'm thinking about different things at the same time.
That's a really smart way to do it, because the danger when you're a performance marketer turned CMO is that you go into an organization wearing a performance hat, and then you teach the CEO and the CFO this performance route. And then when you hit that ceiling that we all know comes, that's where you've almost put yourself on the chopping board, because you've taught them and educated them in a way that they're then holding you accountable to. And then when you need to start these bigger plays, you almost can't get access to the leeway for them to kick in. And then we see that the tenure gets cut short.
And I'm really upfront with this. At least in the last couple of years, I've been really upfront with founders or companies that I talk to saying, look, I've got my core, everyone has a core set of skill set that they can tap into. And I'm like, yes, you know what I've done before, I can do it again, but I'm really keen to do all of these other things because I think they'll be really valuable for you. So, having some brand budget to do X, Y, and Z that would not necessarily have like short-term impact, but really thinking about the long term as well as the short term. That I think I'm really upfront with that now, having those discussions before starting a new role. I definitely think that helps. And there's another thing I think that is, happening already right now, but will happen more and more, is that we've seen the split at the marketing function at the C level. We've seen a split in that role over the last 10 years where a CMO used to be, CMO. Now we're seeing chief growth officer, chief brand officer. And I think right now I'm thinking, and that might change in the future, but right now I'm thinking about this. I think it's because the traditional CMO that existed 10 years ago did not adapt to what marketing became. And that role got split because people in those positions couldn't keep up with technology, with social media, with what's happening with influencers, etc., etc. And I don't want that. For me, it's an excuse. So I talk sometimes about the fact that I think I'm a growth CMO, and I wouldn't feel happy about myself in the future. I need to be seconded by a chief brand officer or a growth person. I feel like it's giving away something that should be part of this role. I think we might see some gradation in the future with a new breed of CMO that have been in tune with what happened in recent years and can take on the role and do more than having to give away some parts of it.
It's like Mark Ritson says he does a smorgasbord presentation. He says there's 3 types of CMO. You've got the old CMO who believes in these big brand plays that gets fired before they take into effect. You've got the young upstart who only wears a performance hat, and he hits a ceiling around 18 months in. And he said the CMOs that are going to last are the CMOs that take the knowledge from both and believe that those are the opportunities for the brand to carry forward. It sits in the middle. And that's why I think you're completely right. The average tenure of a CMO is 24 months at the moment, which is pretty alarming and pretty crazy. But I'd love to dig into what you're doing at Nude, because I think creatively the brand is just so on point. I think you do some great stuff with your content, but also I'd love to hear a bit more about your channel mix and your marketing mix within Nude.
Where should I start? Thank you for the compliment, first of all. So, like I said, our team is really small. Effectively, we've got some support from like creators externally. And so, we've got one marketing manager, which is great. And she does the bulk of what the content, especially the more educational content, is on Instagram, LinkedIn, and what we put on like life cycle, like emails and, just giving value through, to our list, to our like audience email list through email. I think that is the core of what we do, and what is helping us do that in the right ways, that we are very focused at Nude. Obviously, we're fintech, but we're fintech for first-time buyers. So it's very specific. Can't compare us to like a Monzo or Revolut, which could be for like everyone, like a debit card. We have an account, which is called a lifetime ISA in the UK, where you get a nice 25% bonus from the government on top for every pound you put. And we've built a whole app around it. So we're very hyper-focused to who we're talking to, which helps marketing. It helps the content that we produce to be really dedicated to that. It helps us soon this year. You'll see us develop like a real community around it. I'm really keen that we don't call our email list a community. An audience is not a community. Instagram followers is not a community. TikTok followers is not a community. So I'm keen for us to do more on that front. But that's the core. But we went a bit outside of that, especially on TikTok. We started the account, I think, in March or April 2022. And in the space of up until now, I think we're at 30,000 followers now. And our content is really just specific to first-time buyers. Okay, that content is a lot more trendy, sounds and trends on TikTok. It's not as educational as we would like it to, but maybe there's a balance there. But we've gone into TikTok, and TikTok feeds what we're doing on Reels, what we're doing on Pinterest, what we're doing on YouTube Shorts. Because we're a small team, I've tried to be stretching the content that we've got as much as possible, like an individual creator would. So for a very small team, still a seed stage company, we are out there. I feel like we are every day. We've got a few pieces of content coming out, and I'm always surprised to see that some of our much bigger competitor in the space, it's not the case. And they're probably a team of 30 people in marketing, and it's a lot slower to see them churning out things. And I always think if I had their budget and their team, we would do a lot more than that. But don't tell them that. Anyway, if they listen, you're welcome. So that's the bulk of our content. We try some other things on the event side of things. Obviously, we've got a newsletter on the side. We've got a lot of things. All of these things help just having enough content pillars to then distill across all the channels, making sure we can create from all of these sources. I think that's the main strategy, really.
I just want to go back to the whole TikTok piece, because it seems like brands are so scared of TikTok still. And we have multiple conversations about TikTok as an opportunity, being the Instagram that it was 7-8 years ago, where you can grow and you can establish yourself and build that platform. But brands are so scared to commit to it. And that's probably the same with the big fintech companies. They're just so scared because people don't understand.
Yeah. Just to give you an example, Monzo and Revolut are probably the two darling of the UK when it comes to fintech, right? I haven't seen it recently, but last time I checked a month ago, I think Monzo TikTok account had 55,000 followers, and we had 30 already. It just shows you how far they could, they should have millions of followers already, right? If in comparison to where they are in their journey and how big they are, they've got millions of users. So I think that's an example of that shyness that you're talking about. They should do a lot more. So we decided to partner with external creators to create our content. And the deal is simple. Can you put out a video every day, 7 days a week in perpetuity? basically. And we've got a little process behind that with obviously compliance and a spreadsheet, a good old spreadsheet to make sure that we know what things are coming out. But creators these days, like they could create 10, 20 videos in one day if they block their days, and then you've got that bank. I don't really care how they do the content. If they do it all in one day and I pay them for the month, good on them. That means that they could do other things on the side. That's what a creator is about. If you're a good creator, that could be very lucrative for you. So we've got a relationship, and there's like 1,000 creators out there. You just need to find like one that would fit your tone for your brand, or at least the tone you want to have on TikTok. And obviously, you need to be a little bit well as to what you want to put out on TikTok. It needs to be TikTok content. And TikTok content these days, that it's not just one thing. Like if you spend time on the platform, you'll see like in the marketing niche, you've got a certain type of content. On the podcast niche, I don't know if you know about the probably like most popular VC podcast called the All In podcast with, I think it's like 4 billionaires talking to each other. They're all like in the venture space. Their TikTok account has like hundreds of thousands of followers. They're like these 40, 50 years old guys, billionaires talking. It's a podcast edited for TikTok, and it works really well. So I think you just need to find what works depending on your business, etc., and then really give it a good shot. Very frequently, we find ourselves posting a video and we get 400, 500,000 views on it, and the next one will get 500 views. But fine, because we're doing it every day, we're gonna get enough that very regularly. That's fine with us. That also feeds into our paid strategy. So there's a very fluid way of running TikTok these days. A bit of the same with Instagram, but like the organic is the paid is the organic. And when you work with influencers or creators, that content is very fluid. I think it really broke the old way. It's not that old. Like even when we're doing Facebook ads 8 years ago, where it was like, this is an awareness ad. This is a consideration ad. This is a conversion ad. I think this has been squashed into like, this is all the same phase. Like someone on TikTok that is like 18-year-old could be not even thinking they're looking to suddenly loving it and buying it straight away. Whatever you're selling could be purchased straight away. I think you need to think about things a lot more fluidity between paid and organic. And that's kind of where we're testing at the moment with some level of success, but we'll keep trying in 2023.
There's so many opportunities with TikTok. And I think the one thing that, again, holds people back is that they treat it the same way that they treat Facebook or Instagram, which is as a social network, when actually you should be looking at TikTok as an entertainment platform. Nobody looks at your feed on TikTok unless you've done something really cool. Nobody's going there. Where do you think the biggest opportunity for brands are in 2023, and what will you guys be doubling down on at Nude?
I think community is one. There's been like a massive rise of community-led growth or community talk with Web3 last year. That kind of like died down. It's still there, but because crypto and all of these subjects are quite down, very down at the moment, I'm still keen to do that real transition into community. And what does that mean for Nude at our level? Real interaction between people. I think that's one, because it doesn't cost anything except for effort. It's not paid. It's, it accelerate trust, word of mouth, organic growth. So very keen on that. And I think the other one would be probably TikTok, continuing to test on that platform to really solidify on there within our space, within the savings app, first time buyer space, because I still think it's only the beginning of that platform. They've got still a lot under the pedal. And obviously there is a lot more content that, 2-3 years ago. I think when I was at Depop, we were the first one to have access to ads on TikTok. I think we were one of the first advertisers to run ads on TikTok from like day one. And even if you compare to then, like it still feels like a massive opportunity. So both on organic and paid, we're going to keep testing on that front. One thing that, to give you a precise example as to like what happened on TikTok when we started working on the platform last year in 2022, is one of the first influencer we worked with posted a video, and I think we paid a few £100 for it. Posted a video in the first 48 hours, got 800,000 views, 500 comments, and 500 shares. It literally transformed the business from one day to another. And we're an app. So it's like app install. We're trying to make people save for an account. It's not e-commerce. Like, we're an app for first-time buyers. And that worked on TikTok, right? So if that works on TikTok, anything can work on TikTok, right? And then we started boosting it with, obviously, with ads, with Spark ads, right? I think that video is still our best video ever. We got it up to, I think, 8 million views. The cost per install was, what you used to see in 2014, right? Like, for a financial app, it was insane. Like, and never seen that before. But we managed to replicate it a few times, and that's why I think, even though 2022 was real first year of growth at Nude, we managed to compete with really big players with a tenth of the budget because we had 10 times better results on ads, right? And that came from TikTok. So yeah, TikTok's definitely another big avenue for us in 2023.
I don't know if I'm going to put you on the spot here, but before we were talking, Yoann, you mentioned that you're going to resurrect your podcast at some point this year. If people want to find that at some point, or they want to follow you on social networks, where can they follow you? How can they stay in touch for when you do launch that podcast again?
So I'm mostly on LinkedIn. So Yoann, comment and connect with me. That's fine. And yeah, so my podcast, I'm going to restart it this year. I hope in January. It's called Digital Marketing Finesse. Finessing marketing. That was the idea. And you can go listen to the past episodes. I did 10, and it was a mixture of marketers, like specific channel specialists, but also influencers, creators. So it was a good amount of diverse chats. So that's coming back. That's coming back for sure. So Digital Marketing Finesse, connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, Yoann Pavy as well.
Really appreciate the wisdom, the tips, and we're going to be following along with what you guys are doing at Nude, because it sounds like you've got it figured out over there on TikTok.